Myra stood quietly at the small grocery store's checkout counter. Her hands shook slightly as she opened a small, worn-out coin pouch. Inside, there were only quarters silver coins that she had saved little by little. She needed to buy baby formula for her daughter, Lila, who was sleeping peacefully in a soft carrier strapped to Myra's chest. Lila was just 6 months old, too young to drink anything but formula. Myra knew the importance of this milk for her baby's health, but today, money was tight. Very tight. The cashier, a young woman with kind eyes, scanned the baby formula slowly. The price appeared clearly on the screen, $19.42. Myra's heart sank. She reached into her coin pouch and began to count, placing each quarter carefully on the counter. She tried not to look at the people waiting behind her, but she could feel their impatience growing. Some sighed, some tapped their feet. The little store was busy, and Myra's slow counting was making the line longer. The first quarter landed on the counter. Then the second. Then the third. Myra counted slowly, silently praying the coins would be enough. She kept adding quarters, one after another, but when she finished, she realized she was still short by about 75 cents. She looked up quickly, embarrassed. The cashier gave her a warm smile but didn't say anything. Myra's cheeks flushed with shame. She didn't want anyone to see how hard things had become for her. Behind Myra, she heard a man clear his throat softly. She turned around and saw a tall man in a clean, navy blue suit. His shoes were shiny, and his watch looked expensive. He seemed calm, confident, but his eyes were gentle. "Excuse me," the man said quietly. "Put it on my card." Myra blinked, surprised. She shook her head quickly. "No, I can't do that," she said softly. "I should pay for it myself." The man smiled kindly. "I insist. It's just baby formula. You don't need to worry about the money right now." Myra felt tears sting her eyes. She swallowed hard and shook her head again. "It's not about the money," she whispered. I don't want to owe anyone." The man took a small step closer. "Sometimes, we all need a little help. And there's no shame in accepting it." The cashier looked at Myra, then at the man, waiting silently. Myra looked down at her sleeping baby, then back at the man's kind face. She didn't say anything. The man nodded gently and took out his card. The cashier swiped the card and smiled. "Thank you, sir." Myra took the small bag with the formula inside. She held it close to her chest, feeling a strange mix of relief and shame. "Thank you," she said softly, looking at the man. "Anytime," he replied, his voice warm. "Do you need help carrying it?" Myra shook her head. "No, thank you. I can manage." But the man didn't step back. "Would it be okay if I walked you to your car?" Myra was silent for a moment. The thought of walking alone with Lila and the bag was tiring, but something about the man's presence felt safe. "Okay," she said quietly. As they left the store, the cool air touched Myra's face. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft colors. Myra pushed the old stroller gently, careful of the uneven pavement. The man introduced himself. "I'm Daniel." "Myra," she answered. They walked side by side in silence for a moment. Daniel asked gently, "Is your home far?" "Just a few blocks," Myra replied. "We moved here last month. Trying to start fresh." Daniel didn't ask more. He didn't look curious or judgmental. His quiet understanding felt like a small comfort. When they reached Myra's small apartment building, Daniel stopped. "You're doing a good job," he said quietly. "Taking care of a baby alone is not easy." Myra looked at him, surprised. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel smiled and turned to leave. Before he walked away, he said, if you ever need anything, don't be afraid to ask. Myra watched him walk down the street. She felt something strange inside, a flicker of hope. As she carried Lila inside, she looked down at the small bag of formula in her hand. For the first time in a long while, she felt that maybe things could get better. The next morning, Myra woke up early, as she always did. Lila was still sleeping peacefully beside her in the small crib. Myra's tiny apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater. She looked around the modest room, a little worn, but full of love and hope. She thought about yesterday, about the man who had helped her at the store. His name was Daniel. Myra was not used to strangers being so kind without expecting anything back. Her days were usually filled with hard work, worry, and silence. As Myra prepared a bottle of formula for Lila, her mind wandered back to Daniel's kind eyes and calm voice. She wondered who he really was. What made him stop and help her? She got Lila ready for the day, gently brushing her soft hair and putting on a little pink sweater. Myra didn't have much money, but she always made sure Lila had clean clothes and a warm blanket. That was her promise as a mother. Later that morning, Myra had to leave the apartment. She pushed the stroller down the sidewalk. The streets were busy with people going to work, school, or running errands. Myra had a list of places she needed to visit: job centers, food banks, and a small community clinic. She hoped today would be better than yesterday. As she passed the grocery store again, she noticed Daniel walking out. He was carrying a coffee cup and looking at his phone. Their eyes met, and he smiled. "Hello, Myra," he said warmly. "Hi, Daniel," Myra replied, feeling a little shy. "Thank you again for your help yesterday." Daniel shrugged. "It was nothing. I just wanted to help." Myra nodded but wanted to say more. She wondered if it was okay to talk to him like this, or if she should keep her distance. But Daniel's friendly smile made her feel safe. "Do you have plans today?" Daniel asked. "No," Myra said. "I'm just running some errands. Trying to find work too. Would you like some company?" Daniel offered. "I don't have much today, and I don't mind helping." Myra was surprised but also grateful. She didn't want to be a burden, but the idea of someone walking beside her felt nice. "Okay," she said quietly. They walked together down the street. Daniel listened carefully as Myra talked about her search for a job, the challenges of taking care of Lila alone, and her hopes for a better future. Daniel didn't judge. He only smiled and nodded. He asked questions, not to pry, but to understand. At the community clinic, Myra waited nervously. She wasn't sure if she could get help, but Daniel stayed beside her. When the nurse called Lila's name, Daniel gave Myra an encouraging nod. After the checkup, they sat outside on a bench. Myra was tired but thankful. Daniel handed her a small paper bag with a sandwich and some fruit. "I brought this for you," he said. "You need to eat, too." Myra smiled, touched by his kindness. She took a bite and realized how hungry she was. Over the next few days, Daniel and Myra saw each other more often. He didn't rush or push. He just showed up at the store, at the clinic, sometimes near her apartment. One afternoon, Daniel invited Myra to a nearby cafe. It was small and quiet, with soft music playing in the background. They sat with hot drinks in their hands. Daniel asked Myra about her dreams. "I want to be able to give Lila a good life," she said softly. "Maybe find a job that lets me stay close to her. Something simple but steady." Daniel smiled. "That's a good goal. And it's possible." Myra looked down, unsure. "I used to be scared," she admitted. "Scared that I would fail her. That I wouldn't be enough." Daniel's eyes were kind. "You're stronger than you think. I believe in you." Myra felt tears fill her eyes, but this time they were different tears of hope, not sadness. Daniel reached into his bag and pulled out a small notebook. "I keep this for work," he explained. "But I also write things that remind me to be kind. To help when I can." He handed the notebook to Myra. "Maybe you could write too. It helps to get your thoughts out." Myra held the notebook carefully, feeling its weight. It was more than paper, it was a gift. A sign that someone believed she mattered. That day, as Myra walked home, she thought about how different things felt. The world didn't seem so lonely anymore. At home, she sat at the small kitchen table and opened the notebook. The blank pages invited her to write her story. Lila giggled from her crib, and Myra smiled. She picked up a pen and began to write. The weeks passed slowly, but Myra felt something new growing inside her, a small, quiet hope. It wasn't a big or loud feeling. It was gentle, like the soft sunlight on a cold morning. She still faced many problems, but now, she wasn't alone. Every day was a challenge. Myra woke up early, fed Lila, and tried to keep their small apartment clean. She searched for jobs on the old computer in the corner of the room, sending letters and filling out applications. Sometimes, it was hard to believe that someone would want to hire her. She hadn't worked in a long time, and her only experience was caring for Lila. Daniel stayed in touch, but he never pressured her. Instead, he sent messages of encouragement and sometimes brought small gifts like a warm scarf on a cold day or a book about parenting. Myra felt grateful but also careful. She wasn't used to kindness without conditions. One rainy afternoon, Myra was walking home from a job interview. The rain had started suddenly, and she didn't have an umbrella. Her coat was thin, and Lila was wrapped tightly in a blanket in the stroller. The wheels made a soft squeak on the wet pavement. Myra felt tired in her bones. The job interview had gone okay, but she knew there were many others applying too. She hoped, but deep down, she was afraid. When she reached the small bridge near her apartment, the rain came down harder. She stopped, holding the stroller close under a small tree. "Mommy's tired," she whispered to Lila. At that moment, Daniel appeared from the other side of the street. He was holding a large umbrella and smiling. "I thought I might find you here," he said. "Let me help." Myra shook her head, feeling embarrassed. "I'm fine," she said quickly. Daniel didn't argue. He took the umbrella and covered both of them. Together, they walked under the umbrella, the rain falling softly around them. "You shouldn't have to do this alone," Daniel said gently. Myra looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Sometimes, life is hard," she said. "But you make it easier." Daniel smiled. "That's what friends do." When they reached Myra's building, Daniel helped her carry the stroller up the steps. Inside the small apartment, the warm air felt like a hug. Myra made tea while Daniel sat quietly, watching Lila play on the floor. For a moment, the worries seemed far away. But that evening, when Myra sat alone by the window, she thought about the road that had brought her here. She remembered the night she left her old town, the fights, the pain, and the loneliness. She thought about her own mother, who had worked hard but had not been able to help much. She thought about the empty rooms in their apartment and the bills stacking up on the kitchen counter. She felt broken. But she also felt something stronger. Because she was still standing. Days later, Myra received a letter in the mail. It was from the company where she had interviewed. She held the letter with shaking hands and slowly opened it. The letter said they were sorry but could not offer her the job. Myra's heart sank. She sat down on the kitchen floor and looked at Lila, who smiled up at her with bright eyes. "I'll find something better, little one," Myra said softly. Daniel called that evening. "How are you?" he asked. Myra forced a smile, even though he couldn't see it. I'm okay. Remember, every no is one step closer to a yes. You're doing great. Myra felt a warmth inside her chest. Daniel's words were like a small light in the dark. One weekend, Daniel invited Myra to a local park. The sun was shining, and children were playing everywhere. Myra felt nervous but curious. Daniel brought a small picnic basket and spread a blanket on the grass. You need a break, he said. Myra sat down, watching Lila crawl on the soft grass. They talked about simple things: favorite movies, childhood memories, dreams for the future. Myra felt lighter. She laughed, something she hadn't done in a long time. As the sun set, Daniel said, "You have more strength than you know. Life may be hard, but it will get better." Myra looked at the sky, the colors soft and warm. "Thank you," she said quietly. Daniel smiled. "You don't have to thank me. You're amazing." That night, Myra opened the notebook Daniel had given her. She wrote about the rainy day, about feeling tired but still moving forward. She wrote about the kindness of a stranger who had become a friend. Myra's hands moved faster as she wrote. For the first time in a long time, she felt free to share her story, not just the struggles but also the small joys. She wrote until the room grew dark and Lila was fast asleep. Myra closed the notebook and looked around her small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was home. She whispered to herself, "I will keep going. For Lila. For me." And deep inside, Myra believed that someday, the broken roads would lead her to a better place. The days grew warmer as spring arrived, but Myra still felt the weight of worry heavy on her shoulders. She kept searching for work, but jobs were hard to find. Every time she saw a rejection letter or no reply at all, her heart sank a little more. Yet, she never gave up. For Lila, she had to keep going. One afternoon, after finishing her part-time cleaning job at a small office, Myra walked slowly back to her apartment. The sun was soft, and the streets were busy with people laughing and talking. Myra felt tired but thankful for the small moments of peace. As she reached her apartment building, she stopped to check the mailbox. It was almost empty, except for a small white envelope with no name on it. Curious, Myra picked it up carefully. It felt heavier than a usual letter. She stood by the door and slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a neatly folded letter and a small card. Myra's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. "To the mother I met at the grocery store," the letter began. Myra's heart beat faster. Who could this be? Sometimes, the strongest people are the quietest ones. "You reminded me of my own mother, who raised me alone. I know the struggles of being a single parent. It is not easy, and often, it feels like the whole world is against you." Myra felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever written her a letter like this before. "If you ever need help, or just someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out. You deserve kindness and support." Myra looked down at the small card. It read, "Daniel Grant, CEO, Grantech Corporation." She held the letter close, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. She looked around to see if anyone was watching, but the street was busy, and no one noticed the tears falling down her cheeks. Myra folded the letter carefully and placed it in her pocket. For the first time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things could change. That night, Myra sat by the kitchen window, Lila asleep in her crib nearby. The small apartment was quiet except for the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. Myra opened the notebook Daniel had given her weeks ago. She reread the letter slowly, letting the words sink in. She remembered the day Daniel had helped her at the store, how he had spoken to her with respect and kindness when so many others had looked away. She thought about his smile, his calm voice, and how he had never asked for anything in return. Myra's fingers traced the edges of the letter. She wished she could tell someone about this, but there was no one close enough. Her family lived far away, and her friends had moved on. She took a deep breath and began to write in her notebook. Today, I received a letter from a stranger who believes in me. It makes me wonder if there are more good people in the world than I thought. She paused, her thoughts drifting. Maybe it's okay to ask for help. Maybe I don't have to carry everything on my own. Myra smiled softly. It was a small step, but it felt like a start. The next day, Myra returned to her usual routine. She cleaned offices during the day, looked after Lila, and searched for jobs online. But now, something was different. She felt lighter. The letter gave her courage. That afternoon, as she walked down the street pushing Lila's stroller, she saw Daniel waiting by the corner near a coffee shop. "Hi, Myra," he called with a friendly wave. Myra smiled back, a little shy but happy to see him. "I got your letter," she said softly. Daniel's eyes lit up. "I'm glad it reached you." They walked together, talking about small things: the weather, the neighborhood, the little joys of life. Daniel asked, "Have you thought more about writing in your notebook?" Myra nodded. "Yes. It helps me think clearly." "That's wonderful," Daniel said. "Sometimes, writing can open new doors." Myra looked up at him, curious. "What kind of doors?" Daniel smiled. "Opportunities. New paths. I think you have a lot of talent, and I want to help you find a way to use it." Myra felt nervous but hopeful. Could this stranger really be offering her a chance? Days later, Daniel invited Myra to a small meeting at his company, Grand Tech. He explained that the company was starting a new project and needed help with simple writing tasks. The job was part-time and could be done from home. Myra hesitated. She didn't have much experience, and she worried she wouldn't be good enough. Daniel saw her doubt and said kindly, "I don't expect you to be perfect. I just want to give you a chance. Sometimes, all we need is one opportunity." Myra thought about Lila and the life she wanted to build for her. Maybe this was the chance she had been waiting for. She nodded slowly. "I'll try." That evening, Myra sat with her notebook, ready to begin a new chapter. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she no longer felt alone. As Lila giggled nearby, Myra whispered, "Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for seeing me." For the first time in a long time, Myra believed in the power of kindness and the possibility of hope. The morning sun poured softly through the small window of Myra's apartment. She sat at the kitchen table, a fresh cup of tea in her hand, and the notebook open before her. Today was the first day of her new job writing from home for Daniel's company, Grand Tech. Her heart was full of nervous excitement. Myra's fingers trembled slightly as she picked up her pen. She wasn't sure what to write first. The notebook was empty, waiting for her words to fill its pages. Lila played nearby, giggling at a colorful toy. Myra glanced at her daughter and smiled. This job was not just about work, it was about building a better life for Lila. Slowly, Myra began to write. Her task was to write short articles for Grand Tech's website, simple, clear, and helpful words that people could understand easily. It was not easy at first. She had to learn new things and work hard to keep her sentences clear and interesting. Daniel checked in on her by video calls, always patient and encouraging. He helped Myra understand what the company needed and gave her advice on improving her writing. "Remember, Myra," Daniel said during one call, "the best writing comes from the heart. Write what you know. Write honestly." Myra took his words to heart. She wrote about small things at first: how to care for babies, simple recipes for busy moms, ways to stay calm in hard times. She wrote as if she was talking to a friend, sharing what she had learned from her own life. Each article Myra finished made her feel stronger. She was proud of her work. For the first time in a long time, she felt useful and capable. One afternoon, Myra received an email from Daniel with a surprise. "We would like to offer you a permanent part-time position," it said. Myra's heart leaped. She read the message again and again, making sure she understood it right. She called Daniel right away. "Thank you so much," she said, her voice full of emotion. "This means the world to me." Daniel smiled warmly through the screen. "You earned it, Myra. You worked hard and showed real talent." That evening, Myra told Lila about her new job. Though Lila was too young to understand, Myra felt the joy deeply and hugged her tightly. But life was not without challenges. Myra still struggled with money. The apartment rent, the bills, the cost of baby formula, it all added up quickly. One day, Myra found a notice on her door. It was a warning from the landlord. She needed to pay rent soon, or risk eviction. Myra's stomach twisted with fear. She sat down and cried softly. The future suddenly felt uncertain again. Daniel noticed her sadness when they spoke next. "Is everything okay?" he asked gently. Myra hesitated, then told him about the rent notice. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "Let me help. You don't have to face this alone." Myra shook her head. "I can't ask you for money." Daniel smiled kindly. "This isn't just about money. It's about support. I want to help you keep your home." With Daniel's support, Myra was able to pay the rent on time. The weight on her shoulders lifted a little. Over time, Myra's confidence grew. She learned new skills, improved her writing, and even started to dream bigger. One evening, Daniel invited Myra to his office for a small celebration. He wanted to introduce her to some of his team members and show her how important her work was. Myra dressed carefully, feeling nervous but excited. At the office, the room was bright and welcoming. People smiled and greeted her warmly. They talked about projects and ideas, and Myra felt a part of something bigger. Daniel pulled her aside and said, "You're an important part of this company now. Your voice matters." Myra felt tears welling up again, but this time they were tears of happiness. After the celebration, Myra walked home under the stars, holding Lila close. She thought about how far she had come from counting quarters for formula to being part of a company that believed in her. She whispered softly, "Thank you, Daniel, for giving me a chance." As she closed the door to their apartment, Myra knew the road ahead would still have bumps. But she also knew she had found strength inside herself, a strength that would never give up. And for Lila, she would keep moving forward, one step at a time. Spring turned into summer, and the city was full of life and color. Flowers bloomed in small parks, and children's laughter filled the air. Myra felt the change too. Something inside her was growing stronger, brighter. Her job at Grantech had become a steady part of her life. She worked from home most days, writing helpful articles and sharing her experiences. She loved the work, but even more, she loved knowing she was building a future for Lila. Daniel continued to support her, but now their relationship was more like friends than just employer and worker. They shared stories about their lives, hopes, and dreams. One sunny afternoon, Daniel invited Myra to a community event organized by Grantech. It was a program to help single parents find resources, job training, and support. Myra was nervous but curious. At the event, Myra saw families like hers, mothers and fathers working hard to give their children a better life. There were counselors, volunteers, and workshops. The room buzzed with hope and determination. Daniel introduced Myra to the crowd. "This is Myra. She's not just a worker at Grantech. She's an example of courage and strength. She reminds us why we do what we do." The audience clapped warmly, and Myra felt a wave of emotion. She looked at Lila in her arms and whispered, "We're going to be okay." After the event, Myra spoke with some counselors who helped her find local programs for parenting classes and job skills. She felt a new sense of belonging, like she was part of a community. Back home, Myra sat at her desk with her notebook open. The pages were filled with stories of struggle and hope, of fears and small victories. She wrote about the event and what it meant to her. For the first time, I don't feel invisible. There are people who want to help. There is a future waiting. One evening, Myra received a message from Daniel. Would you like to meet for coffee tomorrow? I have something important to discuss. Myra's heart raced with curiosity and a little fear. She wondered what it could be. The next day, they met at a quiet cafe. Daniel looked serious but kind. I've been thinking about how much you've grown, he said. Your writing is wonderful, and your story inspires many. Myra smiled shyly. I want to offer you a chance to lead a new project, Daniel continued. It's a series of articles and videos to help parents like you. You would work closely with the team and share your voice more widely. Myra's eyes widened. This was more than she had dreamed. I don't know if I'm ready, she said honestly. Daniel shook his head gently. You are ready. You just need to believe it. Myra felt tears in her eyes. This was not just a job. It was a chance to make a difference. Over the next weeks, Myra worked hard on the new project. She met with experts, wrote scripts, and even appeared in short videos. Her confidence grew as she saw the positive response from other parents. One afternoon, while editing a video, Myra received a call from her landlord. There was good news: the rent was being reduced because of a new housing program. Myra felt relief and gratitude. She knew that life was slowly becoming kinder. That evening, Myra sat on the small balcony of her apartment with Lila sleeping inside. The city lights twinkled like stars below. She whispered, "This is just the beginning." A few days later, Myra received a surprise visit. It was her mother, whom she had not seen in years. Her mother looked tired but happy. She brought a small bag of gifts for Lila. I've been thinking about you, her mother said softly. I'm sorry for everything. I want to be part of your life again. Myra felt a mix of emotions: hope, fear, and love. They sat together, talking late into the night, sharing stories and healing old wounds. Myra realized that sometimes, new beginnings come from forgiving the past. As summer went on, Myra's life was changing. She had a job she loved, support from friends like Daniel, and a mother willing to reconnect. Most of all, she had hope, a quiet, steady hope that filled her heart. One night, as she wrote in her notebook, Myra looked at the last page and smiled. I am not just surviving anymore. I am living. And with that, Myra closed the notebook, ready for whatever the future held. The summer air was warm and soft as Myra sat on the bench in the park, holding Lila close. The little girl's bright eyes watched the world around her: the green trees, colorful flowers, and other children playing nearby. Myra smiled, feeling a quiet peace she had not known before. It had been a long journey. From the hardest days of struggle to finding steady work, from feeling alone to discovering kindness, Myra's life had slowly changed. But she knew the road ahead still had challenges. There were still bills to pay, worries about the future, and the everyday tasks of being a single mother. Still, Myra felt stronger. She had learned to ask for help, to believe in herself, and to keep moving forward. Daniel's words echoed in her mind, "You have more strength than you know." She thought about the project she had been leading for Grantech. The articles and videos she had created were helping many parents like her. Messages from grateful mothers and fathers came often, thanking her for sharing her story and advice. One message stood out. It was from a young mother named Sarah who wrote, "Your words gave me hope when I felt like giving up. Thank you for reminding me that I am not alone." Myra's heart swelled with gratitude. She realized that her struggles had become her strength, not just for her, but for others too. That evening, Myra returned to her small apartment, where Lila was already asleep. She sat down with her notebook, the place where she had poured out her fears, hopes, and dreams. She opened to a blank page and began to write. Today, I feel hopeful. Not because everything is perfect, but because I know I can face whatever comes. I have learned that kindness can change lives. I have learned that asking for help is not weakness. I have learned that love, especially a mother's love, can move mountains. As Myra wrote, she thought about the letter she had received months ago from Daniel, the stranger who had believed in her when she needed it most. She smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you, Daniel, for seeing me." The next morning, Daniel called. His voice was cheerful. "Myra, I want to invite you to a special dinner. It's a thank you for all your hard work and the difference you are making." Myra hesitated, then accepted. She dressed carefully that evening, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. At the restaurant, Daniel greeted her warmly. There were a few other people from the company, all smiling and happy to meet her. "Tonight," Daniel said, "we celebrate not just the work you've done, but the courage you've shown. You remind us all why kindness matters." Myra looked around the room and saw faces filled with respect and warmth. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not as a struggling single mother, but as a strong, capable woman. After dinner, Daniel handed Myra a small gift, a beautiful journal. "This is for your story," he said. "Keep writing, keep sharing. The world needs your voice." Myra held the journal close, feeling tears well up. "Thank you," she said simply. On the way home, Myra thought about the journey she had traveled. The nights of worry, the days of hard work, the kindness of strangers, and the love that had kept her going. She thought about Lila and the promise she made to her daughter to give her a life full of love, hope, and possibility. When they reached the apartment, Myra tucked Lila into bed and sat beside her, whispering a quiet prayer. "May you always know kindness," she said. "May you grow strong and kind. And may you never be afraid to ask for help." Lila smiled in her sleep, and Myra kissed her forehead. The next morning, Myra stood at the window, looking out at the city waking up. She felt a deep calm. She knew there would still be hard days. Life was not perfect, and challenges would come. But she had something stronger now, a promise to herself and to Lila. A promise to never give up. A promise to keep moving forward. A promise to live fully, with hope and courage. And with that promise, Myra opened her new journal and began to write. Because her story was still unfolding, and it was a story of strength, kindness, and love.